Hello everyone, and welcome back to Family Secrets Unveiled. Dear friends, there's something about women that not every man truly understands. Sometimes, they will ignore you. And in that moment, for many men, doubt begins to creep in. They become confused, anxious, questioning what they did wrong, or why she no longer seems to care. But here's what few realize: her silence does not define you. It does not diminish your worth, nor does it change who you are. On the contrary, it's a test of how well you can control yourself in the storm of emotion. While others react with desperation or cling to hope, you, a man who understands the nature of this game, will choose silence, strength, and calm. This is not a war of revenge. It is a journey to reclaim your power. When you refuse to let silence hurt your self-worth, and instead use it as fuel to grow, you are walking the path of a resilient man. Stoicism doesn't teach you to be cold, it teaches you to recognize what's truly worth reacting to. It teaches you that not every silence is a rejection, sometimes it's just nature's way of filtering things out. And through that process, you don't need to prove anything to anyone but yourself. Your calm, your confidence, and your deep self-awareness are the armor that shields you from the chaos outside. Because a high-value man does not react, he stands still and observes, knowing that real worth is never measured through someone else's eyes, but in the strength of his own character. Why is she ignoring you? Sounds painful, doesn't it? That's because we, as men, are wired to crave validation, especially from the one we care about. Her silence feels like a punch with no warning, cold, quiet, and unexpected. It throws us into self-doubt, drowning in questions with no answers. But what if I told you that her silence might actually be one of the greatest gifts she could ever give you? It may sound contradictory, but it's the truth. Because most men crumble at the first sign of emotional distance. They panic, chase, and try to prove their worth through someone else's eyes. But not the warrior. Not us. We see her silence as an opportunity, a chance to grow stronger, to understand ourselves deeper, and to forge our will like steel in the fire of uncertainty. Take a moment and ask yourself, why does her absence shake me this much? If your self-worth is truly solid, someone else's indifference cannot shake it. Marcus Aurelius, a great emperor and Stoic philosopher, once said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." Realize this, and you will find strength. Her silence? Maybe it's a test. Maybe she's going through something personal. Or maybe she simply doesn't care. But the reason doesn't matter. What matters is you and how you choose to respond. Being ignored is not rejection. It's a powerful reminder. Your value does not depend on anyone but yourself. This is your moment to rise. Not to prove something to her, but to remind yourself, you are strong. You are steady. And you are free from needing anyone's approval to know your worth, accept what you cannot change. Within the word acceptance lies a quiet yet powerful force. A strength capable of transforming pain into growth, and chaos into peace. One of the deepest lessons from Stoic philosophy is this: learn to let go of what is beyond your control. And nothing reveals this truth more clearly than when a woman begins to ignore you. You cannot force her to pay attention to you. And more importantly, you shouldn't try. Most men stumble here. The more they're ignored, the harder they try. Chasing, proving, pleading. Only to lose themselves in the process. But ask yourself, what do you really gain by chasing something that was never yours to control? Only exhaustion, disappointment, and a heart weighed down by false hopes. Women by instinct will sometimes test you. They want to know how much power they hold over your emotions. And the moment you react with desperation or haste, you hand over your emotional control without even realizing it. But as a man of strength, a man who lives by the Stoic spirit, you accept. Not because you're weak, but because you're strong enough to know. The truth doesn't need a reaction. It only needs understanding. You see the situation, recognize it for what it is, and you smile. I see it. But it doesn't control me. That is your greatest weapon, stillness in the storm. As Seneca once said, we suffer more in imagination than in reality. So why turn your mind into a battlefield over a message that never came? Return to what is within your control, your thoughts, your discipline, your growth, and your inner peace. Because there, you'll not only find your true power, you'll find yourself again. The first move, use reverse psychology, choose silence over desperation. It's time to pause, take a deep breath, and remember this, you're not here to beg for attention, you're here to stand firmly in your value. When a woman ignores you, most men fall straight into an emotional spiral. They get angry, they flatter, they chase, or worse, they shrink into weakness and self-doubt. But here's the thing, she expected that. Women are intuitive, emotionally sharp, they can often predict exactly how you'll react. And that's when you play a different game, the game of reverse psychology. Do the opposite of what she expects. Instead of pulling her closer, you calmly step back. Instead of reaching out, asking questions, or showing hurt, you act untouched. She goes silent? You go quieter. She pulls away? You turn colder. What happens next? Her curiosity awakens. Deep down, she begins to wonder. Why isn't he reacting? Why isn't he like the others? And suddenly, the power dynamic shifts, she becomes the one seeking a reaction from you. This isn't manipulation. This is you holding your ground, as a man who doesn't depend on anyone's validation, not even from the woman he once cared about. Women are emotional beings, and their egos can be fragile. When you act against their expectations, you don't just surprise them, you become mysterious, powerful, and magnetic. A high-value man doesn't chase, he attracts. Not through words, but through calm presence, unwavering confidence, and an inner stillness that stands tall amid change. That is the aura of a true warrior. The second move, focus on self-improvement. When she pulls away, you rise. When a woman begins to distance herself, your mind can easily get caught in a whirlpool of doubt. You start asking yourself, what did I do wrong? Why is she acting this way? But, warrior, stop. Instead of drowning in hurt, remember this undeniable truth, the sweetest revenge is brilliant success. The more you invest in yourself, in your strength, intellect, and discipline, the less you're affected by anyone's actions. You start to realize, her distance doesn't weaken you, it makes you invincible. Imagine one day, when she returns and sees that you are no longer the man who waited for her messages, but the man who is building his own empire, strong, calm, independent. At that point, if she realizes she was wrong, great. If not, it doesn't matter. Because by then, you'll be so busy conquering the heights of your own potential that the past won't even cross your mind. Remember Epictetus' words, tell yourself what is right, and then do what you must do. Who do you want to become? Someone lost in the past, or a warrior, moving forward with unshakable determination. The time she pulls away is the time you invest in your greatness. Channel all those emotions into the gym, into your work, into your passions. Every drop of sweat, every new skill, every milestone you achieve brings you closer to the most powerful version of yourself. High-value men don't wait for women to come back. They create their own world where no one has the power to shake them. And when you shift your energy from missing her to loving yourself, something magical happens. You realize you never needed her validation. Because the light you're radiating, that's all you need to keep shining. This is the moment you must rise, not to prove anything to her, but to prove to yourself that you were born for greatness. Don't let a single moment of being ignored pull you down. On the contrary, let it become a catalyst, awakening a fire within you, a burning desire to rise and build your own empire. You've just learned something powerful. True strength doesn't lie in controlling others, but in mastering yourself. When she goes silent, you don't react, don't beg, don't chase. You stand still, grounded, composed, and unwavering. Because you know, your growth doesn't depend on anyone, and your value doesn't need validation from anyone. This is your journey. A path that isn't easy, not paved with roses, but it's the only road that leads you to the most exceptional version of yourself. Turn the pain into fuel. Let the silence become the launch pad for your roar. If you're ready for the challenge, let the world know that you don't live for approval. You live to take command. And if these words awaken something within you, hit like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. Because this journey isn't for the weak. It's for warriors, those who are ready to step into the light and become unbreakable. Thank you for watching until the end. See you in the next video.